Well, what we hope we'd be able to achieve is to make the kind of film that, A, would be a very honest representation of what we do, and also a film that would hopefully appeal to people who aren't just fans of the group, you know. We didn't want to resort to the cliches that happen in so many rock or pop films, you know. And that's something we knew more really what we wanted to avoid rather than what we wanted to get.
We needed to make a live film because the lights were so good and everything like that, but we didn't want a sort of a standard live film.
We wanted to get an idea of this travelling across the country, but as Chris said earlier, we were actually flying, and so that wasn't very interesting to film our travelling, you know. So we wanted to get other people travelling in a more interesting way, driving across the country, and try and get a bit of a look at America as you're travelling across, you know, small town America, if you like. So then we held this audition. We didn't actually personally, we weren't involved really, but it was held in New York, you know, at this club by Malibu Sue and various others, you know. And I think they were just asked a few questions. They didn't know what to
Thousands of kids turned up to this club, you know, and I think they had to go through virtually all of them and find out, why they were interested in Depeche Mode. So all the time they didn't really realise they were being filmed and stuff, and it was always like, yeah, you know, when are we going to start making the film? Even though people were filming them, obviously, on their journey, you know.
I think it's good because it's just a different story. It's like two stories in one, almost. And I know some people think there's too much of them, or they don't know, but I actually quite like them because I think they do. You go, you know, you're really intense. You're watching this the film, you know, of us and the concert, and you go away, you know, and it's good. Your mind goes somewhere else, you know, and then comes back again.
I thought it was a terrible idea in the beginning. I mean, not necessarily a terrible idea, but I could see it getting larger and larger. They were going to have multiple buses leaving from different parts of the United States, converging on Pasadena. And I thought, God, we'll have hundreds of crews chasing after these buses, and all they'll get will be a lot of noisy interior bus scenes that we can't cut. And then, luckily, the cost of it, when he sat down and figured out with Fraser, my son, who was really kind of managing the budget, they figured out the cost of it, it was completely impossible to do. So then they were thinking, well, maybe we shouldn't have any bus at all, or let's just take a bus to Pittsburgh. But by then, I kind of got intrigued by these kids that had been selected by some weird fashion that I still don't quite understand. And I thought it would be really sad to just drop them in Pittsburgh. Somehow it seemed very ungentlemanly. So I kind of really, at that point, pumped for having them go clear across the country.
In the end, I think I liked the kids very much on the bus, and I don't know, they're a source of a lot of very funny, strange incidents, like when the one guy, Chris, goes home to get his tapes, and he finds his girlfriend in bed with a guy.
So then we thought, well, if we could do something special, you know, not just be a general gig on the tour or various gigs. And so then when the idea of the Rose Bowl came up, it seemed right to do everything, like film it and everything, because it's such a special event. You know, I mean, it's something for us to be proud of forever, you know. I mean, it was, I'm sure it'll go down as one of the most important things that's happened in our career, you know.
For me, I think the actual live footage actually works best. It's really, the whole thing is captured, the whole atmosphere of the concert.
The part when that girl is all screaming during Blasphemous Rumours, I think, is another highlight. That's frightening, I think. Frightening.
Obsessed with the whole thing, and as Dave pointed out, it was quite unusual that got captured with the sound recording and her, and it was all realistic. You know, it's like it's staged, but it's obviously not. You know, it's very special, that moment. There's lots of nice things, you know.
I think it's, you know, yeah, those sort of things when you've really got the energy between the band and the audience and band. You know, you can only get it in that sort of moment. You know, where you really see how obsessive the whole thing is, how we get the energy from them and they get it from us as well.
For me, the most interesting aspects filmically in the film are when people talk directly to me as if I weren't a camera. You know, David's telling me about his throat.
Camera, was you? Do you know what you said earlier?
I mean, you guys can't take the camera out. You know the camera's there and it's taking pictures of you. You know that.
Yeah, I mean,
but at the same time, it doesn't matter to you. You see through it.
In the film, it's so good that because in the beginning, you know, when you said we was a bit nervous of you at first, it wasn't because of the camera as such. It was because you weren't. It was true. You weren't a member of a stranger. But in the end, when it shows in the film, you're there.
You're part of the team.
That camera which you've got there is just, it could be a limb.
That's when, to me, filming is absolutely coming right out of your gut.
Yeah, because
You
you're
don't have to
going to
think,
have
your mind is-
you're seeing that, you know, I'm talking to you, obviously.
You
but-
don't have to think what you're doing. You just do the right thing. And I like when the film gets on that level. It's interesting to me, just because we've broken through that big glass wall that feature films and also documentaries put up, which is don't look at the camera.
So I had this presence of someone there, and when I sort of felt it, you know, and then turned around, there he was. It was really funny, yeah. Funny moment. And it was like, what was funny about it was just like ignoring 70,000 people for, you know, for a few seconds, you know, just like looking around like that sort of thing, and it didn't matter who was out there, you know. But of course Tom was filming that. And of course once we got up there, and then I said, you know, I can't see you, and Jane, whoever it was, queued to put all the lights on in the audience. I went running down. And as I was just about to run down, I thought to myself, how's Don going to get down? You know, he's going to just go sliding down. You know, I can imagine him sort of with this thing, it's something to go when you get the shot go in the air.
You know, we went over to America first in 1982 and 1983, and we got a very sort of negative response from journalists, and even at the concerts, you know, we were playing sort of about 1,000 people every night. And we sort of gave up on America at that time. We thought that, you know, our music just wasn't suited. But when we went back in 1985, we noticed a really big change in opinion. And, you know, everybody's attitude over there seemed to have changed suddenly. And we seemed to be, like, really, really accepted. And from that time on, you know, we sort of just built gradually.
It's good as well, because although we're successful, I think it's good because we're still very much an underground band. And we haven't sort of reached the housewives yet. And we're selling a lot of records and doing good live concerts, but we're still considered underground and cult. I think it's a good position to be in.
When we first start making this kind of film, it's kind of like solving a mystery while you're shooting it. I mean, as you go along, you're trying to find out what you're trying to make the film about as you're actually wasting film filming it. And then you get it all back, and you try to, you know, see what you have and make some idea of it. I know for a while, one kind of impetus we had in making the film was based on a song of Martin's, Master and Servant, and it probably has nothing to do with what his idea of Master and Servant is, but it kind of helped us get an idea of the structure of the film in terms of the band and its audience relationship in terms of Master and Servant, and the whole music world's role to the band, Master and Servant, just kind of that kind of complex, everyone else kind of controlling the other person, but at the same time the roles switch constantly. And so we used that as a vehicle for a while, and I don't know, I mean, we have only watched it twice.
The thing is, the process of editing, which is not unlike the process of shooting, except you're using a different equipment, but it's kind of a sketching thing in which periodically, for some reason, you need to give it a certain kind of shape, even though in the end, you're fairly sure it won't be that way. You might not even have that material in the final film. But it helps you figure out what you don't want to do as much as what you do. And you need to keep, because you really don't know what you're doing. And the thing that was most helpful to me personally in working with the band was, for whatever reasons, their willingness to stand back and let us muck around and not know what we were doing and not kind of call us up and say, wait a minute, you guys are supposed to know what you're doing, what are you doing? And the fact is that anything like this, you really don't. I mean, you can say you do, and you develop all sorts of scenarios, you know, scripts carefully written and wonderfully presented presentations, but in the end, until it's finished, you don't know what it is. You're just hoping, you know, that it'll somehow come together. And it does come together because you're not thinking of anything else at all in your life for that period of time. And finally, force of 3 or 4 people struggling together, and I'm sure it's exactly the way their music gets made. I mean, I know it is, because we found ourselves doing the same thing in the film that we saw being done in their music.
I mean, their music was also a big influence on how we edited the film, because we found their music is very layered, and we really wanted to try to show that complexity, because it's something that you don't really necessarily notice if you just listen to the music, but it's something you can kind of visually point out in film. And we tried to do that when we cut the music portions of the film, and then we kind of found ourselves layering the rest of the film in a kind of similar way.
Keyboard has a total of 36 different banks, so each song has its own set of sounds. And on Black Celebration, I've got several sounds allocated to specific parts of the keyboard. So the first sound is... Right? And then the next sound I have to play is a little bit further up on the keyboard, which is just that. So then I can put the two together. And then later on I have to play a melodic part up here.
It's like you're chiseling a president's face on the side of a mountain. You know, you've got a nose and an ear, and they're all roughly where they should be, but you have no idea what it looks like. And you'd need the distancing that watching it with an audience gives you.